I'm sorry, go.
Okay. The regular meeting of the San Carlos Water Control District is now called to order on October 17th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Roll call. Present, Chairman Jim Bradford, Vice Chair Jennifer Finazzo, and Supervisor John Salucci. Sorry about that. Attorney Richard Pringle, Engineer Ron Edenfield, Secretary Treasurer Chris Lawson. Number of guests looks to be about 5 out there, so that would take care of that. And first on the roll call's been done. Let's go ahead with the engineer's report. Looks like you're up, Ron.
All right, awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. Been a busy couple of weeks since our Ian came and left. It says here open permits, but I want to go ahead and start with the cleanup. I think that's more vigorous mindset than the permits are. We came down to an inspection shortly after Ian passed through, primarily to look at the condition of the primary canal system, which is existing around the perimeter of the project, as well as the culverts and inlets and other appurtenances that connect to that primary canal. Essentially looking for issues that might cause imminent concern for impediments to flow and discharge and drainage. We found that there was a fairly significant amount of material that from the storm that had wound up in the canal. There were a number of trees that are laid across the canal, and in some cases the maintenance right of way, which is critical to keep that area open. Similarly, there were a lesser amount, but still a good number of trees that were sort of leaning into the towards the canal that would constitute a pretty significant obstruction were they to fall under the canal. So on the heels of doing the site inspection, we reached out to 4 contractors, individuals that were either referred to us or that we viewed to be competent and capable individuals that could come in and handle the cleanup. We wanted to do that pretty quickly, just so we could get that information and help us make decisions going forward. We did get responses from a couple. One opted to not submit, although their number would have been competitive, but they would not be able to get in here and take any action for probably 4 to 6 weeks. As you can imagine, everyone is quite busy in that, particularly in that skill set right now. So we do have a few proposals on the books, but as with anything else, it's been kind of an evolving circumstance. And I'm not suggesting that we need to take action on those at this meeting. I think the board chair has authority to take care of that independent of the board if you should need to under the emergency authorization. But what's more important is we were able to communicate with the county late this afternoon and finally got in touch with their point person who's coordinating the cleanup for canals and such waterways within the county, known by the name of Phil Galugli. Known Phil for quite some time. He's a good fellow and a good guy to work with. In any event, in talking to Phil, his suggestion was we've got options, and that's either A, if we want to get it done immediately, we can do so, and most likely we will not be able to be reimbursed by FEMA, or we can take time and go through a process known as cooperative procurement, aka piggyback. But I understand you don't use piggyback in any of the forms because that's a bad word. In any event, essentially we're piggybacking on county contracts to do the cleanup work. We are eligible, we do qualify, we can use the county contractors to do the work. The downside of that is it's going to take a substantially longer period of time to get that work done. We have to essentially get engaged with the county, get engaged with the contractor, and get in line behind others that are already there to get the work done, the cleanup work done. And at some point, as our number comes up, if you will, we would enter into an agreement directly with the county selected approved contractor for the cleanup of the waterways. We would also engage directly with the county's contractor to monitor the cleanup. FEMA requires that you hire somebody to watch the cleanup guy, just as a matter of making sure that nobody's cooking the books with extra tonnage and what have you. So they have an independent monitor that comes in and observes the cleanup, quantifies the volume of material taken out of a particular project, that he then issues an electronic loading ticket that gets conveyed to the receptor site. And there's an individual at the receptor site that's paid by the county who will confirm the quantity, the volume of material that's coming in, and he will sign off on that ticket or he will object to that ticket and correct it. So it's a fairly fail-safe process. But in any event, to do the cooperative procurement process, we're going to need to be a little more patient and take our time to get into doing the cleanup. Based on our inspection, I don't think that the circumstance, unless we have a very late-breaking tropical storm come our way, that anything is in imminent danger of creating a problem. Should that circumstance change, and suddenly the storm start heading our way, we may want to grant the nearest contractor we can find to get cleaned out. But as it stands right now, I think we're in pretty good shape to allow the time and process to evolve and try to get our needs in line with the county contract and see if we can get some of this funds reimbursed from FEMA. So that's my suggestion on the cleanup is we've got some contractors that could if we wanted them to right away. On the other hand, I think it would be advisable for the district to wait and let's ferret through the process with the county and see if we can't get in line for some reimbursement. So that's my report on the cleanup. Any questions on that issue?
No. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
For the county contractors, in your experience, it sounds like you've had some experience with it, how competitive are they with private contractors? Pretty competitive because they get government discounts because they're kind of like steady business for them? How does that basically work? Do you see that they're competitive?
I think with respects to most contracts, and so I don't have any reason to believe that this would be any different. I would say on this particular one, though, there's a prime contractor and a backup contractor who in turn are going to be engaging subcontractors to actually come and do the work. So what we're actually engaging is a general contractor, basically. He just administers the project and feeds and pays his subcontractor.
So the GC is the one that's approved by FEMA?
The GC is the one that's approved by the county.
And it could be also approved by FEMA?
It could also be approved by FEMA. The county contract requires them to do all their work in accordance with FEMA's requirements.
Okay,
That's a specific line, specific item in their contract. The monitor also has to do all of their work in accordance with provisions of FEMA's requirements. So they are both FEMA qualified, for lack of.
Are any of the contractors that we would look at that the county uses, ones that the water district uses in Southwest Florida, or some of the other water districts like Lehigh Acres? Are we aware of any of those?
We've not talked to any of those. I don't believe that any of the individuals we've gotten quotes from are engaged by either the water management district, any other water management district. At least not to my knowledge anyway.
Mr. Chairman, if I may
Yes.
add to Supervisor Salucci, part of what is going on here is trying to satisfy the competitive selection requirements of our law, but more importantly FEMA's rules, so that we can have the best chance possible of being reimbursed by FEMA.
And that's what I was going at.
Yes, sir. That's the best. Using the county authorized or county selected contractors generally puts you in the best position possible to receive reimbursement from FEMA. Takes a little bit more time to get the work done, but increases your likelihood of receiving FEMA reimbursement eventually.
Understood.
And it also avoids us having to do a separate competitive selection process, and then running the risk that the person we have selected or the firm we have selected does not meet FEMA's requirements.
Understood.
So this way we're at the best possible chance of receiving reimbursement.
And the only negative is it might take longer.
Might take a little bit longer because those contractors that are working for Lee County, all the other agencies around, not all, many of the other agencies around are doing the same thing that we're talking about doing and using those same few vendors that have contracts already with Lee County. So they get a lot of work, and that scheduling sometimes pushes the work out further than we would like.
Understood. Thank you.
And not to burden this with more detail, but just to kind of add emphasis to that timeline for reimbursement is, FEMA actually looks at things in different categories. You've got navigable waters, you've got non-navigable waters, you've got tidal waters. So all of those different categories kind of build into this process of them making their assessment and determination. So it's my understanding that this could take, through the FEMA reimbursement, could take a couple of years to get that money back.
Yes.
So when Richard says a little while, he's meaning a couple of years.
I have a question that I would like to just throw in the floor and ask you. And when you say navigable waters, et cetera, I just want to make sure that when we're doing anything, that it includes the fact that all of the surrounding areas around us dump into our system.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just an isolated holding pond.
Right.
You know?
I shared that in my conversation with the county this afternoon, so that there are other systems that do depend on this background system.
And what was their reaction? Were they surprised?
It was kind of, oh,
No, it's like everything around us depends on us, not just a couple.
yeah.
So I just want to put that out there so that when we are talking to people, we make sure we imply that.
Well, and that will be part of the continuing conversation, though.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay, so by delaying this, we're incurring a little bit of risk. So that risk, in lieu of how much money are we talking about if we did it immediately?
The ballpark numbers of what we've seen is just under 200,000, right around 200,000, to do just the cleanup of the canal system. So it's fairly substantial sum. And that's the risk that we're facing is, I think, relative to the revenue would be worthy of at least giving a little more time to, let's see how it Merritt Valley
And
plays
the
out.
cost goes to zero then? Or
Pardon?
the cost goes to zero, or just the portion gets covered by FEMA?
The cost of being, I'm not sure I still.
Does it get fully reimbursed or partially?
Or we don't?
The
We
answer-
don't know. Whatever FEMA will approve, they'll reimburse whatever, they're fairly, FEMA is essentially a large insurance company. And the insurance companies, as you know, are in the business of collecting premiums, not paying claims. FEMA's not that much different. I have a little more faith in them than I do in Mutual of Omaha, but not much. So it's going to be a process, and it's a negotiated process. They're going to object to things, and we're going to have to defend them. So documentation is going to be key in going forward. So.
If I may add something, Ron, I took the FEMA briefing that is required in order to do an RPA with FEMA. And from what I gathered from that briefing is there is a cost sharing between FEMA, the state of Florida, and the entity itself. And one of the things I mentioned to Jim, because we had a number of volunteers who are working within the district immediately following Ian. And if we can get and gather the information of what the work that was performed by those volunteers, that can count towards our cost share. So that's going to be a number that something that we want to gather from the residents, because I know Tony was doing some volunteer work, Jim was doing some volunteer work with other gentlemen within the community, and so we want to gather all that data as much as we can. So if anybody knows people who was doing cleanup, getting trees off lines, doing any kind of action that would help improve and repair damages that were done to the district and the right-of-ways, then we want to bring that data forward, the hours that were spent, the people involved, and the actions that were actually taken.
I mean, I cleaned up the stripe in front of me. Stuff still needs some work, but I'll clean it. I cleaned off the road, cleaned up the road. But
I mean, I think we've all done something within our own, around our own homes. But if you did something beyond, like Tony was going down Golden Eagle, and on Bonita Bill there was a tree that was down. He removed the tree out of the way of Golden Eagle and Bonita Bill and chopped that up. Yeah. And then Jim was taking, and his crew was taking trees off the lines, trying to get the electric back
My
up.
brother Mike was involved, and Ed was involved, and it was a team effort of a lot of people that cleaned off the power lines. And then there's been some cleaning of the perimeter roads of big pine trees that were totally just in danger of falling on somebody's house or whatever's been cut down now because of that. So
again, as you're talking to people, if you can gather information, funnel it to Jim so that he can funnel it to Ron, and we can make sure that we include that, because that will start to reduce our actual out-of-pocket that we have to put in. And I think in looking at some of the reimbursements, because I went back to Irma, we were getting checks in 2018, late 2018, I think. Jim, do you remember looking at any of that?
I don't offhand.
So it was at least 18 months past the storm, even though I don't know, I don't think they contracted with the county. So we were still about 18 months outside the storm before we got any real funds.
The one thing I'd like to say is we do have an emergency fund that we will take that money out of when we feel it's necessary to do it. So it's not going to impact our initial budget for this year. We will put the money back into that emergency fund when we get our FEMA money.
That's all. So one final question is, when you did your assessment, is there anything that really looks urgently risky to flooding that we should address with a couple $1,000 or?
The areas around the weirs were a little concerning. I wanted to come back and take a look at them secondarily. Give it a little time, let some of the flow get out of there and see how much material it actually pushed downstream.
Every log in the water isn't created equal, right? So every log in the water isn't equal in terms of risk.
It only depends on whose ditch it's in.
Well, it depends on how much and how close it is to a weir structure where it just kind of builds up and then suddenly you got a log jam or debris dam that's problematic. So those concerning areas were primarily around weirs. And of course that whole stretch between the railroad track back towards the southwest Fork Canal, where it's very difficult getting there and maintain that.
Well,
Was a concern.
Probably the
Next to the Gulf Marsh. So, that's all I've got on that. On the next issue is more routine items of permits. I thought I had given up permitting when I left the Water Management District 26 years ago. Never mind. Anyway. Over the course of the past month, we have approved one permit. We have filed 3 others that were previously approved, and we've got them filed and off the books, and I will send Chris a copy of the package for her request now that we're understanding the process. And did that. We've one project that was no permit required for just an aerial replacement from Comcast, and we had 5. We've got 5 that are under review, that are in various stages of review. We do have one that we're recommending denial on the basis of its approval would be inconsistent with the policies as we understand it, and that's Brad Gallagher's application for right-of-way approval. And the address is 25441 Mariah Lane. The request was for a fence and gate across the maintenance way that runs parallel to the perimeter canal. When we first looked at this application back in early September, we looked at it and it just is inconsistent with the policies and the rules. It would obstruct, potentially obstruct the district's ability to get in and maintain the canal, which is of paramount importance. The access way that's there now is passable, but it is in many places marginal. The concern is that we've got a right of way that we need to protect and maintain. So our recommendation would be is that the applicant refile and extend the roadway from the end of the pavement to his driveway and then connect his driveway at that point. And we'd be able to put a fence on his property anywhere through there, but I think it's important that the district protect its right of way and that it be kept free and clear of any obstructions whatsoever. So that is our permitting report. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question about where you got this rules that you're following?
We're not actually down to your discussion
Okay.
yet. That was the
I'm sorry.
engineer's report. Thank you. Okay, do you have anything else, Mr. Edenfield?
That's all I have.
Okay. I guess it's the chair's report. Number one, I would just like to thank Chris. She stepped up to the plate and spent a lot of crucial hours coordinating everything through this hurricane and just pulling everything together. And I'd just like the board to tell her thanks for all the extra work that she's been doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure what it is, but okay.
Mr. Edenfield sort of blew me out of the water. He took a lot of the things I was going to talk about, so I'm just going to say that was fine. And him and I spent a lot of hours going around the entire subdivision, surveying every single road out here and the entire perimeter accesses, just about getting ourselves stuck a few times out there. So anyway, after spending most of the day doing that, thank you for your report. And I'd like to tell you that a lot of the signs out here were damaged or blown away entirely. Mike has currently been reinstalled, has ordered new signs and been currently reinstalling them. It was sort of an irony that that sign at the end of the street that we needed to replace, it was faded out away, is gone. So the timing of not replacing it last month was good.
Add it to FEMA. We won't need that $6,000 spent.
If
There
you've
you go.
noticed, the rear gate has been open quite a bit lately. That's changed as of did they actually fix it today, or they got to order parts for it today?
They are sending us. It is working, but it may be continue to be intermittent. One of the problems was the aerial was gone for the remote to make connection to.
Okay, I saw a little antenna on
Well,
the right.
there are two antennas on the outside of the box, and those are for emergency vehicles only. The antenna on the inside of the box on the left unit as you face it is the remote antenna.
Okay,
So that was totally gone, and it was just down to the little nub. So that was part of the problem. We do have both boards are bad, and he is going to, and so it's allowing it to work intermittently, but if we lose power, it's not operating as it should, which is to open the gates.
okay.
So we are going to include that with the FEMA damage report.
Okay,
And he is recommending replacement of both units, the two big boxes.
Okay,
And we also asked that if he felt that the arms should also be replaced, and he said yes, if they'll do that. And we asked for LED arms to be included in that.
for those of you
quote.
who don't know, these arms get knocked off quite often by vehicles. To light them up with red LEDs would probably be a better
They
idea.
would change colors as they open and close. And they're only seen on one side, right?
Well, yeah,
But you'll
yeah.
see the glow from the other side.
As you come from one,
Yeah.
if you're coming in from outside, it turns green and red and yellow, I think. And then coming the other way, both arms are opposite lights.
The on one of the boxes, the entire encasement of the box is like just torn apart, and
Yeah,
it
it
looks
is.
like it got hit by some large thing because it's gouged out the case. So we're going to try it, and if they refuse, then we can. We're also going to get a quote for just the boards themselves, and we can make a decision. Depending on how quickly that needs to be repaired, if it continues to be problematic.
If it's going to be part of the hurricane and FEMA, then we've already got approval to do that. So
we're just waiting on the quotes.
So let's get the quotes and then we can move forward from there.
Yeah.
I do want to say something, and let's see. Oh, okay. Larry Rhodes, if anybody, a lot of you may not know Larry. He's been a part of our subdivision for many, many years. He has been the person who's worked and maintained the gates. He used to be the sign guy totally. He's the man who repaired the front fences and stuff when they needed done. Larry had gotten injured just before Hurricane Ian. I don't know his current condition, but I know he was very, from his wife, in very bad condition. I don't want to say serious or critical, but he had a number of broken ribs and bones and stuff from a fall he had taken. So,
and he has some other health issues that are.
and he had already had some other health issues. So I just want everybody to know that the man deserves us at least knowing who he was and that he is still part of the subdivision should he heal up and come back. So I want to thank him.
Open or closed?
It's closed, but it was working today when we left.
Yes.
Did we get extra keys for that?
No, he did not have extra keys. He just had one, so we're
Okay.
still going to have to get some made.
So if you can either give me the key or
Larry did. I talked to Larry earlier. Larry said that Ben may have one. Ben Book may
Okay.
have a key.
Okay.
And he did say may. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we should have at least 3 of them, one for the 3 of us, and making sure that we can get into it. I've been reluctant to let it go so that it seems like I've been getting the calls on it. So was out at 10 o'clock one night opening the gates for people.
And we did replace the lock on the breaker boxes out by the meter
Okay.
because we had to cut it off because the code wasn't working. But
Yeah. So,
we have a brand new key, a brand new lock out there now.
Okay. And the code is the same as it should be?
Yes,
Okay.
but not the code you gave me.
Okay. Then I'll have to get you to tell me that later. Okay. Treasurer's report.
Okay, treasurer's report. All right. We did not have all the bank statements for the month of September, so we can't close out the fiscal year 9/30 yet. We're still missing one bank statement, but we do have a current balance in our accounts of about $1,027,465.29. We've received no funds from Lee County Tax Collector in the last 2 months, but they've been paying a month in arrears, so I fully suspect we'll get some emails sometime this month. We paid this current month $29,200 in bills, and so we still have money from our carry forward in last month, so our general operating account still has $43,260. And even if we don't get money next month, that will still be enough to carry us through the month of November and into December when we will start to receive money. So we will not have to use the funds that were assigned at the Northern Trust Bank for our interim period from October to December to pay for our operating expenses. We have enough to carry us through that period of time. In our phase one, we have $11,041. That was because we received monies that were late after we made our loan payment. So we'll be able to, in February, if the board chooses, pay an additional $10,000 to the loan pay down over and above what we need to, if that's the case. And then in our assigned funds, we have $50,000 for emergencies, such as Ian, for immediate expenses, and we have $85,000 that's assigned to the period from October to December, which I've already said we won't need. And in our Florida Prime account, which is an unassigned account, there are reserve accounts. We have about $837,357. So if we needed to go ahead and make all the repairs that were needed to make, we have the funds available. And the funds are available on a daily notice. If you request it before 1 o'clock, we can have it later that day, same day. So there should be no issue in if we have contract bills that come in that need to be paid for the cleanup, we can pay them, and we have plenty of funds available to do that, which is why those funds were collected and built up over the past 20 years.
Okay. Thank you very much. You got any more?
Yep. Any questions? True.
Attorney's report.
Mr. Chairman, I have a number of comments on your agenda items. I can save those comments until then.
Okay. Moving on, comments from the guests and the public. Any input? Mike.
I had some things. If we wanted to decide to do all of the signs at this time, right now we're replacing 8 signs, and we have 21 signs altogether. And I'm referring to the street signs.
I know.
Okay, so I just thought I'd clarify that. And so if decision wants to be made there or not on replacing.
Okay, the assumption is that most of those were damaged from Ian. I saw the signs leaning over.
The ones that I'm speaking aren't there.
That's what I was
There's
talking
8
about.
missing
Yeah.
of
So-
21 total.
So
Right.
those are damaged from Ian, and
Correct.
authorization's been given to
And-
replace those.
Okay.
So,
So is your question, do you go
Well,
ahead and do the other 23 now?
Yeah, do I go ahead and do it's a total of 21 and we're replacing 8.
So there's 13 more you're thinking.
13 more, and
Do it
they're
as a bulk.
questionable whether they've had a little bit of damage to them, but they're just still present and there.
we'll get us some photographs. I'll take a look at them outside.
Okay.
Here's a curious question. Are there sign companies out there that have little solar modules sit on top of the sign and will have a little light that will illuminate the signs?
That's a good idea.
I'm sure there must be. I don't even
Because
know.
at night, it's like great for Halloween in the next few weeks here.
Sure.
When it's dark.
Right.
If you can explore it, I would explore it.
Yeah.
Because if it's not that much more money, be nice.
The difference is we would have to bring that back to a board meeting for approval. The immediate replacement of the signs, we don't have to do
Well,
that.
maybe we can put an aftermarket little module.
Yeah,
on top.
that's what would be recommended because those are, those kind of lights a year and they're pretty well done, maybe 2.
But something to consider.
Yeah,
In a
so-
future board meeting, I think
You know.
if we find out what the cost is, it'd be nice to do
Yeah.
that.
Or just pop one on yours, and that way you know where you live. No,
I always make sure you need a lot of stickers.
that has been done, by the way. I've driven around at night and somebody put one up there. So,
Okay, anything else?
Did you look at the road signs and the stop signs and the other signs that we have around the community that need replacing?
yes, and I have them ordered also. I didn't put a quantity there. I've got them all separate, but the speed limit signs and things that are missing or have been damaged. I've started to order some of those, And
Any of them that have been bent, the bolts are pulling the sign already from the heavy winds we had.
Right.
Every single one of those are a hurricane damage sign.
Right, okay. Then I'll put those on. At what point? You want me to just go ahead and put them on order or?
No, if they're hurricane damage signs, you're authorized to
Okay.
replace them. Just keep me informed as to the
Okay.
costs.
It'll probably be through a second order, but.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so in your bill this month, you kind of mixed up some things that were normal and some things that were storm related. I think we need to isolate storm related and have this in as a separate bill
Okay.
and with time. Don't you need time, Ron? For the FEMA applications, you need time spent, cost of materials. Tell us what the detail is that we need now so we don't have to go back and recreate.
If you can keep a log of any time or expense, particularly quantities, that materials
That's what we're trying to
removed,
get them.
and then have a verification of that quantity. Photographs are wonderful documentation. You don't have too many of those.
I do have those, but everything that I sent you, it may not appear that way, but they were either leaning signs or damaged signs, or I replaced signs.
Okay, but they didn't all say Hurricane Ian or
That'll take care of it.
So I think we need to be very careful in our billings going forward, whether it's for your work, Mr. Pringle, Ron's work, Jim's work, whatever it is that we're having done, we need to, I think, mention Hurricane Ian, be real specific as to time and what's
All
been
right.
done so that we can, have a line item that we can go back to and identify.
Receipts, contracts, groups.
And I'll get that to you, so it's a little more detailed.
Okay. You have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Anybody else?
On a related matter, would you consider a no littering sign there along the filter ponds? There's I know somebody who picks up about 60 gallons of litter every couple of months.
I tell you, that's something that David has been absolutely, I know you didn't say that for an attaboy or anything because you've never asked for anything, but
I don't care about picking it up,
But-
it's just, I don't get it all in there.
I know.
Maybe some of it floats down.
you know, it's really sad in our world today as though people don't know not to litter. It's like people don't know that when you come into our subdivision, by the time you read that sign that says dead end, no exit, there's no place to turn around. So by the time you're at that point, you're committed to be in the subdivision, but yet we put a sign up. So I just, I'm wondering how effective a sign is, Dave. But if it makes you feel better, we'll put up a sign.
Well, it's worth a try, so.
Let's put up a sign.
it looks to me-
Order a sign
Based on the
No
garbage.
for littering.
No littering.
Yeah.
Littering, you want them to litter or not to litter?
No
No.
littering.
Maybe if we ask them to litter, maybe they
They
won't.
will.
But
No kitty litter.
with all due respect, let's put up a couple signs along there
Okay.
and get that taken care of.
My expert opinion on the litter is it's kids coming home and throwing their alcohol empties out before they get to the parents' house.
No.
That's my guess.
You may be very right on that.
Just,
Individuals.
I've been
I
down there
see.
with him picking up the bottles, and if you see the kind of litter he's talking about, it looks like chunking it over the roof of the car and off into the grass.
Well, I can't tell you the number of people I've seen that just throw their cups out like this.
well,
I'm
there's
thinking,
that too.
it's just so rude
Yeah.
and disrespectful.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we're gonna move on, okay? Moving on to the 2021 budget, 2021-2022 budget amendment resolution.
We're gonna table that.
Yes, sir. In speaking with Ms. Lawson earlier, she is going to have good numbers for the budget amendment versus the numbers that she has now are her best
Yes,
guess. So she'll have those hard numbers for the next meeting.
very
And
good.
we'll present it to you then for your adoption.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Funds assignment resolution.
That one, Mr. Chairman, if I may, that one's on me. I didn't realize, I was looking at the earlier version of the agenda, that it wasn't on that version, and so I was looking and doing other things. I will have that for you as well at the next board meeting.
Very well.
Yes, sir.
New signature cards for Florida Prime Bank, American Northern Trust, including any required related resolutions. I believe we've signed those.
We signed one, we have two more to sign, and we can sign them after the meeting.
Very good.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you would for me, please, sir, I don't recall if the board has formally approved the resolutions. Has the
Well,
board formally adopted the resolutions? I can't recall if we did for all three.
You've done you did resolutions last year, for the Florida Prime and for the Truist, which we were closing. You did not do last year for the Bank of America and Northern.
So if we could have then just a board.
There is a resolution that's part of the packet.
Yes,
So,
So, Mr. Chairman, in order to have formal board action on those resolutions, if you would entertain, please, sir, a motion to adopt the resolution related to the Florida Prime Banking, and then a separate motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the Bank of America banking, and then a third motion to approve the resolution adopting the Northern Trust banking arrangement. So those are three motions.
Okay, I'll put a motion on the floor to adopt the resolution for Northern Trust.
I second the motion.
Okay.
I put a motion on the floor to adopt the Bank of America, the resolution for the Bank of America.
Second the motion.
Aye.
And the last one being,
Florida Prime.
put a motion on the floor to adopt the resolution for Florida Prime.
I second the motion.
Aye.
Okay.
just so everybody knows, what we're doing is removing Ben from the signature cards and adding John
No.
as the new supervisor, naming Jim as chair and Jennifer as vice chair. I don't know if this need to be included in your motion, it's part of the motion, what we're doing.
Those will, all of that will be included in the resolutions.
Okay.
So the resolutions will have all that detail in them. And will you need to circulate those resolutions, Ms. Lawson, before the next board meeting for
Okay.
signature?
They're signing them. Yeah.
Okay, you got them all? Okay, all right.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 10/6/2022 emergency meeting that was held. We need to ratify that meeting, so we need to,
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, under Florida law, the board met in an emergency meeting. It is specifically authorized by section 189.015 subsection 1 of the Florida statutes. We followed, I was on the telephone with you at the time. We followed the procedures and the requirements of the statute to have that emergency meeting. At that emergency meeting, the board took official action, and the meeting minutes, the draft meeting minutes are here. The board took official action to authorize the chair under chapter 189.015 subsection 1 of the Florida statutes, and also under the executive orders 22-218 and 22-219 issued by the governor declaring the state of emergency for Lee County related to Hurricane Ian. The board took action to authorize the chair to enter into agreements, including with government agencies, with FEMA, with vendors, related to any services the district might need connected to Hurricane Ian and the impact of Hurricane Ian on the district. Under the law, now in our regular session, the board needs to ratify that action that the board took at the emergency meeting.
okay, I'll put a motion on the floor that we ratify the meeting of 10/6/22, the emergency meeting concerning Hurricane Ian.
Second the motion.
Aye.
Yes, sir, and the motion will spell out, in the ratification part, we will spell out the action that you took October 6th, so it will all be on the record of this meeting as well.
So I'll just basically repeat this into
Yes, ma'am.
those motions.
Yes, ma'am. And that's all for that one, sir.
Okay, the next thing is Hurricane Ian damage issues and resolution and repairs. I believe that the engineer has already outlined that portion of it. Do you have anything else to say on that?
Not at this time.
Okay, then that's completed. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify for the record, the action that the board took at the emergency meeting to authorize you to enter into those contracts, you just ratified those actions. So just so everybody understands, you are authorized to take action on behalf of the district in relation to any matters related to Hurricane Ian or damages or any corrective activities or contracts that need to be entered into. You have the authority to do that on behalf of the district.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay.
Jim, do you have anything to add to that? To what Ron said?
Do I?
Yeah, for what you've done so far.
No. Okay, Mr. Edenfield, the detention pond maintenance. You got anything to talk about that? Since Ian, everything sort of changed a little bit.
It's
We've
changed.
been through a lot of that. So that might have been already included in our discussion earlier.
No, I would like to share a couple of thoughts that I've had on that. Primarily the northern side of the detention area, not so much the filter marsh area. I think it seems to be functioning pretty well, and doing what it's supposed to do, and that's clean up stormwater coming in. But I've noticed that in the two ponds that are located on the north side of Strike Lane, particularly at the easterly end of the northernmost one, when I first saw that, it occurred to me that a pond in that area would be a tremendous benefit to excavate that shallow pond out to actually create a deeper water body there. We've done several filter marshes, and I remember did the first filter marsh that Lee County ever did with the 10 Mile Canal filter marsh. And then we did for the city of Fort Myers, we did the Bella Creek filter marsh.
Well, I'm familiar with the 10 Mile Canal. That turned out really nice.
It did. At least in the first days anyway. I'll leave it at that.
That's because you were involved in the first phase.
Well, not necessarily.
I'm just kidding with you.
Not necessarily because we were involved, but primarily because it had, it mimicked the natural systems. The discharge came into the first cell, and that was a deeper water body. The deeper water body discharged into a shallow marsh-like habitat with a relatively shallow depth of water. It then went into a little deeper marsh, where again you had a little deeper water body, and then it goes back into a very shallow marsh until it ultimately discharged back in the 10 Mile Canal. The configuration it's got right now is monoculture. It's just one level the whole way. And I've somewhat of a student of nature, and I don't believe I've ever been through a marsh that was one level the whole way, or any natural system that was straight. God doesn't make straight lines. So, but what we have now at the entrance is very similar to that. It is one shallow depth of water the whole way through. And I think we could generate some additional water quality benefits by mixing that up a little bit, mimicking nature. Allow that water to discharge into a deeper water body where the sediment has an opportunity to settle out and be contained within a specified area instead of spreading throughout the length of the marsh.
In the relationship to what you're talking about, I just recently had the experience of looking at all of the swimming pools on Fort Myers Beach on Curlew Street. And every single one of them gets overflowed for a maximum of a few hours, getting saltwater intrusion into them. I was cleaning mine today, and I had about, I'm going to say at the shallow end, 2 to 3 inches of muck and mud, and at the deeper end, closer to 6. Just from that 20,000 gallons of water that settled there. And the water, the swimming pool was full of fresh water when the storm started.
Most
So
other neighbors
when you
don't-
talk about the settlement areas that can be a benefit to our canal system, I can totally relate to that coming into there from our ditch system, hitting a pond before it goes into the next couple of areas.
Effectively, what you're taking benefit of is the velocities as it comes through those pipes. It's got relatively high velocity. It's moving through there pretty quick. And you dump it into a pond area, which is a relatively larger, tremendously larger volume than those two pipes. So that velocity goes from here to nothing. And the sand goes, whoops, and it falls. So there's where your settlement occurs. And then as it leaves that deeper water body, it gets back into the shallow, thinner flow area, the velocities pick up a little bit and move on through the system. I would even encourage that in and through there, we have areas where we raise and lower very subtly, just a few inches.
Like a ribbed effect.
I don't know, sort of kind of speed bumps, if you will.
Exactly.
But what you want to do, and the reason for the variations in depth in the latter part of the system are primarily to get diversity in vegetation. You could put 6 plants in one spot and one of them will survive because the other 5 don't like it there. It's too deep, it's not deep enough, it's too sunny, it's not sunny enough. But if you give yourself variability throughout that system, you get a wider range of vegetative diversity, which is going to benefit you in nutrient assimilation. It's going to benefit you in contact assimilation for oils and greases. It's just functionally, it's just a better system, and will increase the water quality on the downstream end, which is ultimately our goal. Anecdotally, I know a gentleman who will go nameless who had a project in this part of the world who needed very low DO water to test his project, and he got it from the outfall of the marsh. And I'm like, whoops, that's not good. So, but when you've got that type of, just homogeneity through a system, you tend to have DO issues. You've got to get some ripples in there to get it bubbly and get it to aerate somewhat. So anyway, so yes, that's my thoughts on that. We'd like the board's permission to look into that over the course of the next several months and evaluate the potential for going through the South Florida Water Management District and getting approval to do that. We'll come back to you with a little more specific proposal on that.
Okay.
So we have.
We spoke with Mr. Brown last year, who's in charge of the filtration marshes. He had indicated that, and Chris was with me that day, that those should be cleaned out. So along with what you're suggesting, it's right in line with that. We also working with Mr. Brown, and you already know that David Nagy has taken on part of helping to open and close the gates down at the end when necessary to do so. I can pick up the phone and call him and he'll open them for us.
Is he the gatekeeper?
He's a gatekeeper.
Pardon?
As directed by the board.
Okay.
While you're talking about the marsh area, when I was speaking with Larry, he said that with all the wind damage to the current fencing that goes around there, split rail fencing, he recommended we just take it out.
I think that's up for discussion yet, so we're not going to do anything this month, okay? Yes, sir. Dave?
David Beach Drive. I got the goat. Goat in here. What do you estimate would be kind of the average depth now? 2 feet?
Oh, in the marsh now, maybe 2 feet from the level it is now to the top of bank.
And recommending in terms of depth, what are you speaking of in terms of for increased filtration factor?
It's going to be, the depth is going to be directly a function of the inflows, which are going to be directly proportionate to the rainfall. So, I mean, it's not a system really that you can design a flow. We don't have a weir upstream that we can take advantage of a constant flow. So that's going to be part of the issue is a system that's very variable in its width and dry cycle.
So you're going to do calculations, projections of what it could be.
We would really look at it under a worst case scenario. We'd say a design storm, say a 25-year 3-day storm, which is fairly routine. But more importantly, look at those 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch rainfalls that are more typical. Probably 95% of the rainfall we get in this part of the world is less than 1/2 inch. So if we can capture and get that to move through the system, then we've got something. We're really treating the water that goes through. So.
But generally, in terms of you get adequate settle, what kind of depths does that usually require?
The depth wise on
Yeah.
the pond, you wouldn't want to go deeper than 10 to 12 feet. You get below that and you start getting into your oxygen levels on the bottom of your anaerobic, and you just don't have the, although there are organisms that do feast in those
The bottom feeders.
but 10 to 12 feet is usually about where you want to go. That gives you a good light penetration in most cases when it's not too turbid. And that gives you an opportunity to get good anaerobic digestion throughout the system. So.
Would there be a safety recommendation to fence that? Because of the depth?
And signage, you're reading my mind. I'm thinking we start having 5-foot holes, channels there. We need to have signage saying property of the district, stay out. You know,
Alligators
Well,
Brook.
we
I don't know if to say alligator, but
we would
You're
have
gonna kick him out.
it wouldn't be holes. We would have to come out.
the whole trench.
No, it'd be just that east end. We would create a pond that would have we'd have certain side
Yeah.
slopes that are required by county and state codes, depth to a maximum, and basically what you get is a 4 to 1 side slope, 6 to 1 side slope, down to 2 feet below water level, normal water level, and then you go 2 to 1 from there. And the reason being there is once upon a time, over in Dade County, they turned a rock pit into a lake in a subdivision, and the guy walked off the bank and went 60 feet to the bottom, and they fished him out 2 days later. So the Water Management District said, we need to write a rule on that. And Dick Rogers wrote a rule that said you got to go 4 to 1, 2 feet below, because that's about the depth to which you can see your toes. And so if you can't see your toes, most people are not willing to take that next step. So at 2 feet below control elevation, you can go to a 2 to 1, which is a little steeper. And most people, when they feel that little steeper, they go, nope, I'm out. So you would have to have signage. You would have to prohibit swimming, frolicking, any other, I don't know that you could, kayaking maybe, I don't know, be a tight kayak race, but you would want to protect that zone and limit and keep people out of it. Even with the good side slopes.
If we're done with that, the next issue on the agenda is culvert cleaning project, competitive bids, and I know that you already know my opinion of that. We don't feel that the culverts have been cleaned in numerous years, and we need to look at a 1-year project to do all the culverts in the subdivision. And then we won't have to think about culverts for another 10 years. So.
Having not been in the district this week, how is the debris pickup progressing?
Yeah, it's the big trash trucks and stuff have been out here, but they have a cycle of 3 times.
Right.
So they've been here the first time. The downfall to the recycling trucks is they leave all the pine needles and they leave all the leaves, and all of that stuff goes into the ditches. We've got a lot of great residents out here in our neighborhood who's been raking up in front of their houses and taking care of their needs, but we've got the same amount who do nothing. So Tony's been out doing some of it, and that's how that's going at the moment. But we're going to do another cycle of it, so people are going to be putting more trees out and more bark out. Good thing being, rainy season's just about ended, and it'll give us a time period for that stuff to dissolve, be cut up with the lawnmowers and mulched up. So,
what sort of timeline would the district like for us to put together a package to put out to competitive bid?
for the cleaning of the
cleaning of the ditches. And
Okay.
my thought on that is, let's let the debris clean up, run its life cycle, and then start with the cleanup afterwards. Then we've got.
I would hope that there's a place in the wording of the FEMA stuff, and from what I read, it seems like there is, that in a three-phase step thing, that there's a portion of it that allows sort of like a preventive maintenance kind of thing. That if we do this won't happen next year. So if we can pull some of this in under the FEMA grant, if we get anything, I would like to try to do that. So when you ask me the question, I would like to see it before the next rainy season taken care of. As the chairperson, I'm not telling you what to do here. We have 3 members. David.
On culvert cleaning, in your touring around the district, do ditches need to be cleared out?
They do, and that's going to be part of that. They need to be taken down, and Mr. Edenfield will probably agree, because I think I heard that from him. A couple inches below the bottom of the pipes themselves. Depends on probably what timing we use in doing that, whether or not we have to put grass in.
So will that be done with using survey stuff so you get the right?
This gentleman is going to probably survey everything.
We've, being relatively new to the district, we have received some previous survey work from Marshall View. We've been going through and reviewing that. In their roadway project, we're still getting our arms around the fact that they've got high points at certain points and water going north and south. So we want to take a look at what the grades should be. One of the things I've noticed in the permitting is that grades really aren't specified. And it's a fairly critical.
I think we all out here know that.
I'm just a new guy.
And I know. Let me say something else while I got the floor for a moment. I am the chairman. No. No, seriously. In before the storm, and I told you about this, we went and raised 4 of the grades 3.5 inches. Those 4 grades did not accumulate any trash whatsoever. We videoed it, and we've got pictures of it. And for the first time, my street did not flood to the extent that it has, let alone the fact that after the rain stopped, and I had comments from people over on Papillion Drive who didn't even know I did it, and said, our water went down so much faster in this storm.
It's amazing how well they work when they're not clogged up.
Okay, and then we look over on Strike Lane, and we had complaints, Chris can tell you, about some of the culverts over the drain, drain caps that were full of grass and leaves and debris, which we've had people complaining about because they're concerned about the next rain. So,
and there's a relatively simple fix to that. And with your permission, we can put together a proposal to design the fix for that. You essentially come in and put baffles around those inlets to protect them from debris getting in and overtopping them and filling them up. And because once that happens, until you get out there in the rainstorm and clean them off, they're done.
I know, and that's what we've been experiencing.
You've probably seen on the interstate, on the side of the road where they have their little treatment areas, you'll see the concrete box and then it'll have an aluminum plate around the outside of it. And what the aluminum plate does, let's say that, for example, that's the top of the structure, that plate would sit like this, so that as water comes up, it comes underneath the plate and into the structure, and it's not able to wash the material over the top of the structure. Very simple, very effective, very cost-effective way of keeping those devices open and flowing during a storm event. I know that there are a number of those inlets along Strike Lane, and I believe a few others elsewhere in the district. But
We've got quite a few of them.
yeah,
We've got almost every street has at least 2, and we've got some that are actually under the surface that are clogged that you don't see, and then we've got the ones that are above.
that is what happens to them after a while. They get clogged, and everybody forgets about them, and the grass grows over them, and the next thing you know, you're out there with a stick going, where'd it go? And
I can show you some of those.
So the ones at the end of Catskill during the storm, I went out like every hour or 2 and pulled stuff, and they were clogged up every time. I
And
went
if
out.
you'd gone to Papillion Drive, they were clear because we raised them 3.5 inches. And they were sitting 3.5 inches above the concrete part. So it was like a lid up here and the water was flowing in over the concrete. and everything dumping through. Big old tornado look going away.
But it didn't
That was on Papillion.
put the level on up, didn't raise the level in the culvert, did it?
No. I actually cut some 4x4 blocks, which are 3.5 inches, and put 4 of them under each one at each corner, which raised the lid 3.5 inches.
Did you apply for a permit to do that, Mr. Bradford?
I'm probably going to get a fine. It was a test thing just to see what would work.
It's a pilot program.
Part of the emergency authorization related to hurricane.
Thank you.
Let's say, yeah, the emergency authorization.
In anticipation.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Let's move on, guys. Okay,
891.
we're at 8991 Strike Lane. And I'm assuming that that's up where the big gate is?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have one thing to say about that before we start to talk. I went down there before the storm, and there was a stainless steel cable that's padlocked that would not allow me access. I mean, it wasn't even on his property. It was right next to Strike Lane. Strike Lane being, both those roads are Strike Lane, okay? So right at the edge of his grass, in front of his fence, being next to the asphalt, is a stainless steel cable that he's put up on posts. And he had it padlocked in front of his gate and in front of our access gate. Then secondly, he had the access gate padlocked days before the storm and days after the storm. We were not granted any access to check anything on that section of the canal system. And it wasn't like he just did one thing, he did two. And I took photographs of both.
I've seen it.
I have, Mr. Chairman, if I may, this item is not before the board this evening for action.
Sure.
But I can give you a report. There are documents that were entered earlier by the district and the predecessor property owner that I have now discovered. They were all entered into as a part of the litigation that occurred some time ago related to this parcel. When this parcel was removed, I think it was around 1998 or so, from the district as an accessible parcel. And that settlement agreement, together with an easement that was recorded, I believe will become the basis for the district's activities and authorization to use a drainage and right-of-way easement that was created. So I recently discovered those and want to review them with the attorney for the property owner. In addition, before I bring it back to the board for action. And in addition to reviewing those documents, I will also talk about the fact that the property owner does need to remove the steel cable and remove the padlocks. In everything that I have read so far, there's not any reference to being able to install a cable. There is reference to the installation of gates, to the keeping of gates, but they are supposed to be gates that go across the entire width of the upland part of the right-of-way. Mm-hmm. And so I believe there are a number of violations related to that usage of the right-of-way.
Well, according to the DOT, we're supposed to have at the end of our roads a turnaround. He has blocked that with the cable, and he's landscaped it to make it with rocks and things to make it almost difficult for any truck to turn around down there. I have a difficult time doing it with my pickup truck, so I choose not to go down there with my pickup.
This is the 8991
Yep.
lane piece.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, if you can get with me and share. I don't know those specifics.
Okay.
I
will do that.
Share those with me,
Okay.
and then I will write a letter to the attorney, who I think I mentioned last meeting is different now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different attorney involved on behalf of the property owner. So I'll go over those items in a letter to him, ask him to resolve those items, which are clearly should be resolved, and then he and I can discuss further what all of these agreements mean that were entered into by people who are not here. Yes, predecessors way back related to the use of that right of way.
Okay.
So I'll try to have something a little bit closer to resolve, to a resolution for you at the next board meeting.
Okay, the next issue is the Brad Gallagher gate request. So, Brad, you're up.
Yes. So, Mr. Edenfield, just a refresher here. So, based on your last comments, you recommend the gate request that I had put in. You recommended to deny that request. And during that denial, you said it was based on rules and regulations that you had reviewed from the district. Is that correct? Have you had a chance to review the previous emails concerning the subject or the previous meeting minutes that's been conducted over the last year and a half with the board?
No.
Have you had a chance to see how many gate requests have been put in through the city of Benita?
No, I have not.
Okay. Have you any idea what unit my property at 25441 Moriah happens to be? Unit 1, Unit 2, or Unit 3?
I've been to what I believe to be your property, yes, sir.
Okay, do you know what unit it is as far as CIP assessment? Okay.
What's he talking about?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, so.
He wants to know whether he's a CI, if he's unit 1, 2, or 3 for the assessment for the CIP.
And what should that have to do with anything we're
Well,
discussing?
I don't know why.
I'm trying to, if you may, I'd like to explain that. So he hasn't been here for the last year and a half. It started before you were a board member, so previous to you as well. So, and John, you probably don't know about this either. Okay, so the district has 3 different units: Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3. Unit 3 is all the units that are on strike length, okay, including your son.
The most expensive. I know.
Right. They have the greatest access, the greatest benefit of it. So they are assessed the highest. Okay. Unit 2 was the old Bonita Bill section, which was all dirt. There weren't any roads there. There was never planned to be roads that way besides the dirt. So they had the lowest assessment. Okay. Now Unit 1 is 84% of the units in San Carlos Estates. My property on Moriah happens to be assessed at 84%, just like your guys on the side streets. Okay? So all the benefits that you receive of having a paved road, paying those assessments, I pay the same amount of assessments based on it, but I get less of a benefit. Okay? And the reason that happened was the board, none of you guys, not blaming any of you, previous board many, many moons ago, decided after the CIP had been passed that they weren't going to pave those roads. So my whole point of this is, if that original CIP, and the reason that Moriah was assessed at Unit 1 is because it was supposed to be paved, okay? The board at the time, way back then, made the decision not to pave it. For whatever reasons, it's not your guys' fault, okay? My point is, I have been that property on Moriah has been assessed at the same assessment of all the side roads, but we don't have the same benefit. Am I making sense with that?
The benefit
We're gonna have
of
to give that to the attorney down here too.
But Mr. Gallagher, I think the difference is
Let me say one thing real quick before you start. Real quick, please. Okay?
No.
If it had been paved, I would never be asking
Just
for
a
a
moment,
gate.
just a moment.
so
The
here's,
attorney has the floor.
so here's you are the assessment that you are, and we talked about this. I talked about this several times before. Not because of your frontage on Moriah, but because of your frontage on Papillion. Is that the other? You have frontage on 2 roads. You have frontage on Papillion, right?
Well, he
And
technically
frontage-
does not have any on Papillion. It is his pie goes a cut across Mariah, that's the closest thing he gets to Papillion.
It's a
Yes.
very unique.
No,
Okay.
right, but it does, but the assessment was based upon your frontage, your on Papillion. That's why you have the assessment that you have. And we talked about the fact that there is a corner in some of the other pieces
And
that are
that's correct.
similarly situated have a corner like that, and they come off of the paved road there. There were some other corner pieces that are similarly situated that I remember us discussing before. So I want to clarify that you have the assessment you have based upon the fact that you do have frontage on a paved road. That paved road, however, does not go on Mariah Lane. It's also, the Mariah Lane is not paved on adjacent to other parcels as well that are similarly situated. The problem is this is what the problem comes down to, and has been discussed before, is where your property touches Papillion, there is a wetlands area
And a grade.
that interferes with your ability to come off of Papillion and access your property. If that wetlands area was not there, then you could go, what would that be, along your north property line and go from Papillion along your north property line back into your property.
But I can't, sir, because there's a drainage grate right there. And according to the Bonita code, you can't put an access way that close to that drainage grate, the one that Mr. Bradford had put the blocks under, which worked very well. If that grate wasn't there, then I would 100% agree with you. But again, it's a very unique circumstance that we're dealing with.
Right. And I think the bottom line of all of it is that the ability to block the roadway is what Mr. Edenfield is talking about with a fence or a gate is what he is recommending not be approved. So the Mariah Lane remains open for maintenance, for use as it has been in the past. That's the perimeter canal and needs to stay open. So I believe that's why. I may be putting words in your mouth, but I
I'm
believe
sure
it's
you're not. That is absolutely the justification behind not allowing a gate there, is the preservation of the district's ability to access that at any time, night or day, to do maintenance on that canalway. It's purely preservation of right of way.
But there's 3 more gates on Mariah.
But if the gate has the same lock that the other gate does, I don't see how that's blocking any access. It's not like I want to put a cable there and say you guys can't come down the road.
I'll just tell you up front, we don't want the gate there, period.
Okay, well, what's the rationale?
Doesn't
That's what I'm
matter.
trying to say. It doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't matter.
Well, don't you think it should matter? Since
No, I don't.
Why? If you're
Why should it?
if you're a representative of the members of the district, why should you just be able to make a decision without having some rationale?
Because it's a road that belongs to everybody out here, not just you.
Okay, so I pay completely for both sides of the road, not 50-50, but you don't want me to have any control or access of the road, is that correct?
I didn't understand you.
I said I don't pay just 50% of the road like you do. You own up to 50% of the road. You always said that you pay for that 50%.
I've always said that.
I pay all the way across the canal and everything, but you want me to have no control or say or access to it. Is that correct? You just want me to pay for it.
No, I actually believe that the road should be paved to the same quality level as all of the rest of the roads out there.
And it should have been paved originally, correct?
Because you do have access off of Papillion Road. You do. You come up to Mariah, you can make a left-hand turn. I'm the one that fought to defend the fact that that you shouldn't go through the swamp.
Right.
But I know a lot of people out here who have mitigated the swamps just to be able to build a house.
Okay, but Mr. Edenfield just said how great it was to replicate nature. So you're going to tell me as a water control district who's supposed to control quality of water, you want someone to pave a road now or go through a swamp? We spent 1.5 years on that beforehand. That doesn't make any sense.
And I defended you for 12 months on that very same issue.
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you. Because I think that's the correct thing to do as a water control district member.
but I do believe that the road should be paved to the quality of the other roads.
Okay,
By who?
but it
And
should have
then-
been paved originally.
And then, when you turn off of that road onto your property, you're welcome to put up a gate.
But it should have been paved originally. You didn't pay for your road to be paved.
I did.
How?
Same way everybody else out here did through the tax system.
Okay, so the tax system that I paid to have that road paved, or the previous owners paid, it didn't get paved. So how's that fair?
Hang on, Mr. Perlaza.
No, that's not right. Mariah Lane, the capital improvement project as a whole included the paving of certain roads.
Yes.
And included certain roads not being paved.
I-
That was it. It was not a selection of your specific property that was not owned by you, but was owned by your predecessor. It was not a selection of that property with the idea and intent of the board to be that they would not pave Mariah Road in front of your property. That wasn't it at all. They looked at the roadways where there was usage. They looked at the roadways where there would be people accessing them, and they said if a roadway is going to be accessed, then that means there's going to be development on the lot, and the road needs to be paved next to that developed lot so that there's not going to be destruction of the road right-of-way. On the roads that were not paved, there's a rule in place in the district handbook that says if you are going to gain access from an unpaved road through a driveway permit, then before you can get a driveway permit, you're going to have to pave the road, the unpaved road, or the portion of the unpaved road, down to your driveway that you want to get a permit for. It's a prerequisite of the issuance of a driveway permit normally. So that's the normal method. And I describe all of that because earlier you asked Mr. Edenfield about that requirement, and that's where the rule comes from. That's what's, and everybody else, and I've been consistent throughout of saying, if you're on an unpaved road, you got to pave to your driveway point. And we've had other discussions about other property owners wanting to have driveway points on unpaved roads, and I've said the same thing. The road should be paved. That's what the rules say. If the rule, it's in section 5, it's on page 11 of the document that I'm looking at, if it says with unpaved roads that the owner is required to extend a paved roadway from the closest paved roadway location up to their proposed driveway entrance. So that's the standard. That's the standard. And that's why I said way back in the beginning of our discussions about your property that the pavement for Papillion, where it comes down to that hammerhead, that somewhere there where your property fronts on that pavement, if you don't want to pave a road, that's where you need to have your driveway. And that's what got us into all that discussion about the wetlands and everything.
Right.
That got us to
Right.
where we are today.
Because as a water control district, our goal is to protect the water quality.
And that's what we're trying to do because that road's not paved.
Actually,
Okay, but
that's not.
if you make someone go through a swamp, how is that protecting the
That's
water?
Let me, Mr. Chairman, if I can respond.
Go ahead.
That's actually not what you are saying is the standard of the water control district is not really the standard of this water control district. That might be the standard applied by South Florida Water Management Districts, and that might be why you would have to get a permit to place a road through that wetland from South Florida Water Management District. But if you're on your private property, if you're on your side of the right-of-way line, then you're not going to have to get a permit from this water control district. The purpose of this district is water control. It is for purposes of the permit and satisfying the permit that this district has, the water quality in the canals in the waterways of the district is what the district is responsible for, not the water quality of wetlands on your property. That's your requirement. That's
But
your.
we heard in the homeowners meeting last month that these natural swamp areas are a greater benefit to the overall system. Is that not right, Mr. Edenfield?
They're not bad things to have, that's for sure.
So
Absolutely.
why, as a board that's concerned about water control, would we even talk about trying to pave these roads when I was originally told, Mr. Pringle, not by you, but by other members of the board previous to this, that gravel was not allowed, okay? And then I brought forth many documentation and everything from Water Management District and everything else saying that gravel is preferred because it's a permeable surface and lets the water go through. Okay, we got past all of that stuff. But I just don't know where the board is trying to go with the gate thing. If I'm letting the board have full access, just like they have access to the gate already, and I already have a space that the people can walk through and bike through and horses can go through and jog through and do all this stuff, I just don't understand what the board wants. You know, I've tried to do everything the board has asked me over the last year and a half. I haven't done anything on my own, okay, without the board saying that I have. I've done all of the stuff that has been directed to me, put in new application. Chris, how many applications have I put in for this gate?
Half a dozen, probably.
Yes. Okay, so it's not like I'm just some rogue person that's going out and putting steel cable and a padlock across my stuff. Okay? I just don't understand what the board wants. You know, if you didn't want the gates all this time, why did you keep telling me to keep putting these requests in over and over and over again?
I think we told you that we would deal with this in October.
Right.
You kept putting in requests. I don't know what more we could say to you.
But you kept telling me to.
I never once told you to put in one.
You as the board was saying.
And
Not you personally.
I don't recall the board telling you to put in an app. Did anybody on the board tell him to put in an application? Because I don't recall that.
I have emails.
Okay, that's good.
Okay?
I'm just saying.
I'm
So
not
you
in-
probably got those from Bill Morris.
No,
So-
I didn't.
So who did you get them from?
I got them from Chris to turn the application and stuff in.
From the access, from the website.
Yeah.
You completed one of the access permit.
Right. And then I also had another one that, you know, from the meeting minutes from April of 2002. You had said in here, the board needs to decide what the standards for the gate installations will be and apply those standards to all the gates around. Okay, has that been done? And if it hasn't been done, why is Mr. Enfield making a decision on it when the board hasn't even made a
Well,
decision?
the board can make a decision right now. I'll put a motion on the floor right now that we not approve any new gates whatsoever, period. And if I get a second on it, then it stands.
Okay, but
I am putting the motion on the floor
for what?
to not include any new gates on any of our perimeter roads.
So no gates on any of the perimeter roads.
I said we're not putting any new gates on the perimeter roads. And I'm putting the motion on the floor right now.
And what's the reason?
Do I get a second on that?
What's the board's reasoning? As a
It's been
board member
seconded.
that represents the people of the district, what's the board's reasoning for that? Is that such a hard question?
It was
As a representative for the members of the community?
Enfield, you already got a second.
Okay.
Is it unanimous?
You got a second.
Okay, where are you at? You gotta vote one way or the other. Okay, we have 3 votes.
So who seconded it?
Because now I got understanding what's going on here. I see what's going on here, yes.
I'm proud to have it, but
Well, from what I can see, what I understand is the access to the canal road on Mariah Way, is the same as all the other perimeter roads. If you have a driveway entrance down there, further down, if you want a gate for privacy, you put it on your property at that driveway entrance, not at the end of what's at Papillion and Mariah. Why? Why do you want that there versus a gate at your driveway? Which, of course, is your right to put a gate at your driveway, so no one comes in. Because if the rest of it all is wetlands and woods, no one's driving through that. So if someone comes down and they want to get on your property, you've got a gate there.
Mariah,
Not a gate on
Let
Mariah.
me ask you this, John.
But on
Are people
North End-
supposed to, besides the water control district and people doing maintenance, are people supposed to drive down there? Is it open to the public to drive down?
I don't think it is open.
For the,
public.
for
I
the
don't know.
board?
First of all, most vehicles that go down there are doing damage to the perimeter roads, doing damage to the canals. So everything I've heard from the meetings I've been to so far, as a resident or now on the board, people are asking about their bikes, asking about walking, maybe horses, maybe even some golf carts. Not about vehicles, not about trucks or anything else. So I guess you look at this and say, okay, I want to be able to access my property. So if I drive down here and it's not in good condition, then the road has to be brought up to some specs for you driving down there. But that's something the board will look at and say for you to access that, as opposed to just coming off and getting it.
I can't. There's a
All-
grate there.
All people on the perimeter roads that have houses have paved the roads to their driveways to get on to go to their houses on Bonita Bill, on,
Orion.
oh, if you look over
Bonita
on,
Bill is Unit 3. It's not the same.
oh, well, then look over on the end of Penson Drive when you turn and go to that house there on the left.
And what
It's
about
a-
the ones that were paved
And,
originally?
and it's
on the
got,
right?
it's got a road there. You
What
go,
about the ones that were paved originally on the right?
I'm
You
not,
brought that up
I'm not
several
going to
times.
debate those.
Okay, so you see, it's.
But they're all going to be paved in the future. And I'm going to put a motion on the floor next that you have to pay, that we're going to rescind the agreement we had earlier and you have to pave your road.
Because you're gonna, for what?
Because it needs to be paved to protect the environment.
Is it not true that you threatened me that if I put in a gate that you would take down the access way?
Did I
you
threaten you? I never
Did you
did.
send someone over to my house and my property to say that to me? Is that
No,
not true?
That's not true
At all?
at all.
Okay. Well, I was given bad information by your
Well,
friend.
you most certainly were. And if you have a friend of mine that said that, you want to put his name up here, I'll deal with it too. But that didn't happen.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it if it
If
didn't happen.
you, if you know the person, then I guess you can either say it or not. But that's up to you.
Yeah. Norm told me.
Pardon?
Norm told me.
Norm told you. Norm,
Yes.
Norm
Okay.
K told you that.
Yes.
Well, that's wrong.
Okay. Well, if
And
it's
he's a
wrong,
very good friend of mine.
I know that.
Okay.
And that's why I trusted the information.
Okay. Norm's a very good friend of mine. You can take it back to him. And I will too. So,
Did we need to call for public input on that motion?
Yeah.
So just for the record, John, so you're saying that he should put the gate on his
If
property?
he wants a gate to protect his property, put it on his,
Okay,
Property.
where his property, the driveway, I guess there's an existing driveway, his property, put the gate there.
right, just for the record, Mariah is his property.
Outside the right of way.
Outside
It
the
is-
right of way.
Okay, fine, so I'm just saying, it is his property.
Subject to divide.
Again.
Yes. That's
Subject
what
to
we've always
the
said.
right of way, which is
Subject to
allowed.
divide.
Pay for it, can't do anything with it.
If you drive down the north end of the properties, the Bonita Bill, every single person who has put a gate up of any type has a entrance off of their property, and then here's the right of
Bonita
way.
Bill.
Yeah, Bonita Bill. They're all
So
like
Bonita
that.
Bill is
Nobody's
right
going.
gates.
Like, let's say this is your road, and these are the properties. There's nobody that's gated it this way. All their gates run this way, and they open and close that direction.
Even Mike, the guy who lives next to you on Rye Lane, has put up a chain link fence all the way to the pavement. His
Because-
primary access to his road, according to our rules, is his front yard.
Because
And
he's
he
told
does
by a
that.
previous board member that he couldn't
And
vote.
he can access the back of his property, and he's allowed to do that.
But it's the back of his property. It's a secondary access.
That's correct. It's a secondary access.
It's my only access.
Pardon?
It's my only access.
I know.
But the,
So
That's what the comment is.
but
He doesn't use it every day.
you know, there's
Go
lots
ahead,
of, there's
again.
lots of things in life that we could do. You know, I could sit outside of somebody's house and blare my music. I can videotape them. I can take pictures of their house and stuff. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. You know. I'm just asking for some like common
You gonna say something?
decency here.
it's the discussion continues to go back to Mariah Lane, but the reality is, as inconvenient or difficult as it may be to use it, the access onto Papillion, right, is
Correct.
onto Papillion. That is your paved frontage. If you did not want to, under the rules, if you said, I don't want to pave a road, I don't want to pave anything, what can I do? The answer would be the Papillion frontage is the frontage. If a grate needed to be moved, then okay, let the board know that the grate won't allow you access. The board's engineer can decide whether that is in fact an impediment or whether the grate and your driveway can coexist. Everything was designed and intended for your access to your parcel to be from that paved road. And I think that is consistent with the other parcels in the district. There's the standard. The discussion of other possibilities are just that. They're discussions of other possibilities, but they're not the standard. The standard is your access is off of that paved road. I mean, that's just, and in other instances that I'm aware of, where an individual has asked for a second driveway, as an example, that's not on a paved road. Their first access way is on the paved road, and they want a second driveway on an unpaved road, which would be comparable or comparable to your use of Mariah Lane for your access way. They're still required to, we've required, I remember, them to pave the road down to their driveway permit, which, and I don't know what permit you submitted, but the permit that should be submitted, by the way, is the one that's in the application packet. I don't know if that is that the ones you.
Yes.
Okay.
The most current one.
Okay. All right. I hadn't seen the application, so I don't know. But I do know that in the past we have had some discussions about what application to use, and that application is the one that applies to any application to use the district's right of way for any purpose. So that would be the one for review. But there's the standard. The standard is the section that says if you're going to have a driveway permit or a driveway access point on an unpaved road, you have to pave the road. That's the standard for the district. So that's the rule.
So I'm going to put a motion on the floor that we rescind the previous agreement and we follow up with the procedure that is in the manual to be followed for the perimeter roads, and that the use of them require them to be paved.
So what are you rescinding? Agreement to do what?
He's taking away my access to the property.
No, we're not taking away your access. You have an access. We're taking away our right to use the road, the Mariah Lane, unless you want to bring it up to standards.
Right, you're basically taking away what you worked for 10 months to give me. Now you're taking it away for no reason. Other than I asked for a gate.
So wait a minute, so you're taking away his access to Mariah Road? Or
No. He wants to pave it and bring it up to the standard of a road. He can use it all he wants.
And there's an agreement.
That we have a written rule for doing this, and we're going to follow that procedure for all roads in the subdivision.
Second that.
Pardon?
I second that.
Aye.
Ridiculous.
So you
The
guys,
statute book changes every single year.
Well, you
And you guys want to go on an access standard book that's been written 15 years ago and think that that's the rule of the law like it's a stone tablet? The 10 Commandments?
All right, so what was the motion?
The motion was to rescind the previous action taken for the use of Mariah Lane,
so just,
and that unless he wants to bring it up to the standards that were in the rule book, and
Yeah.
if he does that, he can use it.
So do you think this is proper due process? So you gave him permission to do something, he did it, now you're rescinding it. How can we
I'm
run,
tired of the community.
are you running, what is this a zoning and so there's no due process here?
This other guy you gave access to the stuff, he puts up a gate and a lock and everything, and nothing happens with him, but you're gonna rescind my access because I asked for a gate? Come on.
No, there's litigation on that one. 891.
There's litigation.
No,
on that
891.
for
There's
long.
litigation on that right now.
Well, so to clarify, the 8991 strike lane parcel is not in the district. It's outside the district. As a result of the settlement agreement that was entered in 1998, 1999, somewhere in there was a settlement agreement between the property owner and the district, and as a part of that settlement agreement, that parcel was removed from the district. And so, as a part of that settlement agreement, there was an agreement on what gates were going to be installed. That was a part of that setup, of that litigation. And so that's what the district can enforce is that settlement agreement, because that property is outside the district. With your property is in the district. The district has the rules and regulations about development of driveway access points. And I think that's what this is ultimately getting to.
But this was done in retaliation for asking for a gate.
It was not. You keep saying that.
Then why did you work for it for 10 months and now you take it away?
Because there's a standard that all of them need to be processed.
There was a
and
standard 10 months
That's
ago when
right.
you worked for
And
it.
I made a mistake, and I admit that. Sorry. So that's been passed. The next thing we need to do is authorize the attorney and Mr. Edenfield and the chair to work to take whatever action necessary to follow through with this. And we'll need a motion for that.
I second the motion.
So
Are you approving?
Jim, you made the
So
motion
that was-
to authorize the attorney and
The chair
engineer.
and the engineer to take whatever action necessary
aye.
to follow through with it.
You second that, John.
I second it.
Okay.
I understand the motion. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay,
Perm-
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
With his rescission, he did pay the attorney fees and the engineering.
His agreement
costs.
at the time was he knew the
All right,
risk he ran.
John seconded. Motion passed.
Permit on 4-6.
Okay, so I received a call from the resident who applied for, received a permit number 469 for 24100 Whippoorwill for a second driveway. I think upon finding out what it would all cost and all that was involved, they changed their mind. They're not going to proceed with putting in that second driveway. So she called, Casey was her name, and she called and asked, is there any way that they could get a refund for the permit fee since they're not going to proceed with the action? I looked back at Morris Depew bills. There was an engineering expense of $120 for the processing of the application. So the request is she paid $750. If we deduct the $120 from the $750, would the board be willing to refund her the $630 difference?
I'm going to just tell you openly that I think that would be fair, but I'm going to ask the attorney his opinion on that. I don't want to get caught up in something that
Precedent.
we have to start setting a new precedent for doing things.
Yes, sir. Typically, there is not a refunding of an application fee. If you go down to the county or the city and make an application, it's a non-refundable application fee.
Is it disclosed as that though?
I don't remember what yours says. If everywhere else it is understood. And I don't think there's anything in your documentation or in your application that says that it might be refunded. So any expectation that it might be refunded is not based upon the application. And I thought it said that it was non-refundable.
Because if we can address it as non-refundable and it is non-refundable, or, you know, this one time do it and then make sure that it states non-refundable, you know,
I would.
because it's not if it's not non-refundable.
I'm just coming over.
I don't know,
I'm just coming
using
off.
discussion.
I'm just coming off of getting caught up with this thing with Brad
Yeah.
and making a bad decision.
Right.
And I gotta tell you, I'm sort of gun shy here at the moment.
Yes.
But I'm just
Mr.
wondering what the
Crandall, I would make a
precedent is
suggestion.
legally.
Yeah, but I would make a suggestion that if it's not explicitly stated on our
That's what I'm
application, in
Right.
the future, it should be explicitly stated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought we did, but I don't remember.
Maybe what we do is say to them, if you want to change your mind in the future, it's part of a credit.
Credit.
It could be a credit towards your future.
Well, I think the permit lasts, 3 years?
Yeah,
They could leave it as an open permit for the 3
say leave it as an open permit for the next 2 years, if you change your mind, or if the costs come down or something like that.
Ron, you have processed some recent permit applications, right? Do you recall seeing any language in that permit application that says it's
I
non-refundable?
just asked them that.
Don't recall seeing that.
That seems like a big mess.
And if we
Did you
do,
have something to say, Dave?
I would recommend that you don't start refunding.
yeah, I agree.
No, I agree.
I know
I'm saying,
it's
but you have a
It's a
precedent
very,
that you have
very
to have
slippery
in writing.
slope.
I agree.
And then it becomes, well,
Or what's the legal-
He said, she said.
Yeah.
Or what's the legal obligation?
Yeah, I think most applications,
You don't get your money.
you don't get the money. It's like,
You snooze, you lose.
that's what,
You know, you apply to a university, it doesn't explicitly state.
I have to
but
agree
some-
with
you
that.
lose your application fee. But
Okay.
it's
As much as I'd like to give it back, I think that's leave it open for 3 years.
Well, I
If
just
they
did
choose
an
to
HOA
change,
application and they
if
got
they
a
choose
refund.
to change their mind, they can use it.
So I mean, it's just,
it's a nice way to say no.
but the new association specifically says non-refundable.
So if they came back and asked for an extension on that 2 or 3 years, whatever that time period is.
Whatever board's in charge of them can make that decision.
All right.
But then,
She
Mr.
was,
Pringle should.
you know what,
Yes,
her
sir, we
tone,
should.
her tone was like, I don't know, I'm just asking, it would be nice if we could. So it wasn't like she really expected it, it was
I
one of
know.
those things where you asked and you're gonna get a yes, no, or maybe answer.
Well, if you throw her the bone of the credit, that's.
Well,
what I
I'm
would
just
do, yeah.
using it as an experience. I'm just doing right now is that had a homeowner do an application and the association refunded it because it doesn't say, but the other one that I just submitted says it's specifically non-refundable. So I just don't know what the legal precedence is.
Well, just to cover our butts in the future, let's put it on the application.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
that's
would
what
make a
I'm
motion
saying.
that we should, in the future, the application have that non-refundable.
Disclosure.
Yep. A second?
Second.
Aye.
John, did you get original documents for any of the paperwork that was created? I mean, I did change your name on all of it through PDF, but you know, you're real limited on what you can change in PDF, and it gets really messed up really easily. So, but I was able to change your name from Morris Depew. But on the access handbook that Morris Depew put together, that is locked up tight. I can't change that.
I think that should remain as a professional engineering document.
I know, but it
was
says it was prepared by Morris Depew,
It
and
was prepared by Morris
it's got all
Depew,
their names throughout it.
And that's fine.
Let them keep the liability, you get anything new.
Well, they prepared it, it's their document, and quite honestly, for me to put my name on it and my engineering.
Yeah, we
seal
wouldn't
on it,
want to do that. I think you'd want to rewrite it if that were the case.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna rewrite their document. We would like to offer some amendments to it, and that we'll bring forward over time. But I don't think it'd be appropriate to amend it completely and remove their name from it. It is theirs, and they do have pride in their work, so.
There is a lot of links in this inside the document. I don't, no one's going to be updating those links. We don't have access to those links, so I don't know if it's going to present a problem at some point.
We're digging into that.
Okay.
Combing through.
This is one right there.
I know.
Okay.
Trying to more
So-
they ran over the side.
I can look at that document and
Okay.
see if there's a
All the way
place
over.
where I can put where it talks about the permit fee that it's non-refundable,
There's the-
not having a Word document or an
This is
Excel
the-
document or the original document that
Then if you
created
go
that
further,
PDF.
you
Okay.
can find it.
I'm not sure I can add that language, but I can try.
If you have
See the
that,
back of the truck. I know
You
the
have
truck
a-
actually had left.
you have the Word.
No, I don't have the Word document.
What is it that you
Right.
have?
A PDF document.
Front end loader.
Because there's a PDF
This
converter I
guy's
have
at
Nitro.
farm.
I can
Yeah,
do
but
that.
it's not really
Yeah.
great.
You told me about it.
I tried converting it to Word and it didn't do a good job.
If you've done a PDF Nitro,
Yeah, I don't
send it
know.
to me. Maybe I can.
Well, it's on the site. You can download
This
it.
is what he's
Okay.
selling.
Okay.
It's on the
I
homepage.
made revision to these documents before.
Little like miniature skid steer or something.
Mhm. Except that's
I
a
don't know what
loader.
version we have on the
Swivels in the
We
middle.
have a
Do you do a response though? Like when somebody
Is
submits a
there-
permit, do you
does it
respond?
I don't get it. It goes straight to the
That's
attorney.
ours. That's all runs our pine tree.
Okay.
Engineer.
So like as me as a homeowner, how do I know you got it?
I don't get it. James
They get it
gets
because they could also
You would
shoot
intentionally.
whatever they communicate back to the homeowners that it's whatever they say and their process and by it's not fundable.
All right, but I'll try and look at that.
Here's a cover. I was just looking, there's a conversion of the
This is
application packet.
Today.
Right in the instructions.
My
page
truck was
two,
down to his place. Down
there's
there's
a
heavy equipment.
checklist.
That was for
and it
sale,
says
not
submittal
use.
requirements checklist. It says speed check. I can put right there, parentheses, non-refundable.
There, he only has
If there's
15
space, I can
feet.
add it
Look what he's occupied.
to the document.
That truck's 8 feet,
If there's
that truck's
space that
6.
allows that.
Ron wants to see the
Well,
photo.
I think
Okay.
we
On the
March
checklist.
provide this.
Look at this.
We did this, and I saw a couple of places where it says Morris dispute, and I would also.
Did you just download that today?
Do what?
Did you just
I was
download
gonna
that
put it on
today?
the big screen here tonight and show it, but I decided
How
not
would
to
you
go.
download that?
That was.
You might show Dave what you're talking
I've
about.
got eyes on shoulders, pages.
All the way over.
Because I updated it to take out Morse Compute here and put Ron here, and then wherever I could.
Show who?
Okay.
That's his problem.
And this is the
Can't
document.
shut 15
February.
wide, 15
It's
foot
on the
use.
website now.
What's the use?
That February 11th, 2021.
That's on the side of the road.
Well, whatever, this was.
All that's bad.
Yeah, but I think
I forgot, right.
I'll look into it again.
So there's the end.
What you gave me, D and J?
Well, I gave you D because D
Yeah,
is
that's
D.
right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Turn that
D-
direction, it should always turn
the-
left
the,
and back up. And then-
General score.
Okay, so John made the motion.
That was Missouri.
Who seconded your motion, John?
This is where the
Okay,
trucks
so
are.
I'll ask Pastor Ann
And
if
there's
what case you
a
want
rack
in.
he has on there.
But,
This-
but what you heard was
putting
the one that was
non-refundable.
like.
Yes.
Yes.
I just,
Did you see these photos?
looking up, so I don't think that's.
Okay.
I'll bring it. Can I get it
See, there was no keys on that. I went,
On the panel store?
no.
All right, so I will give her a call back or contact her and let her know that the fee was non-refundable.
See, I don't care.
I know.
That it permit will stay open,
Well, you
but
care.
if she should
And
decide
if
to
you
do
chose to see,
it,
No,
this
I know.
is today's event.
You don't want
With
it
him.
like B
to
flat.
apply for
Oh,
extension
yeah.
on it, and
That's too
it
low.
may be good.
Or too
I
high.
don't want to say it will be good, but
Right.
So
it may be
No
good.
problem.
there's the
Yeah.
tracks
I
leading
just
back to
realized
the.
a second ago.
If she applies.
There's where he
Oh, yeah.
crossed there, the tractor trailer.
I was enjoying
So they effectively.
Right.
He ran
Right.
He ran over the embankment, pushing
Did they
it,
change your mind?
and you can see over here where his other tire was.
He brought a big tractor in tonight.
And then the tire was way over there, and it softened, and he pushed it over.
Of course, he's
Yeah,
It's tore things up.
that's
Tore that
so-
way.
He's torn up the road in the event.
So that's an around.
but
This
he,
is-
but he
Yeah,
conveniently
the
left that out.
opposite
didn't he?
A tractor trailer has to make a turn somewhere,
I know. So,
and then it was hauling medium duty
It's not
equipment.
approved road, it can't happen.
Yeah,
Is this
No, oh my
It's
God.
doing damage to the right of way.
the end of a pavilion,
lane going east?
east and west.
So I can see where he's going.
The tractor trailer turned east
Driving
to
a
back
car,
up to his
pickup truck
place.
is different
So
than
that's what
driving
the
18
future
wheels.
Exactly.
will be.
Yeah, there is a difference. Okay, let's finish the meeting.
Okay.
I'll keep you guys busy.
We're back
Okay,
here.
Chair lady.
I'll go home.
Okay. There's a thing here, procedure related,
We're at
okay,
manager
then
selection.
we're done with that, okay? Manager selection. We obviously haven't got to that, so we're gonna table it.
Yes.
Secretary treasurer selection, we haven't gotten to that. I think, we need to move forward with that maybe by next month and
Yeah.
get something done with that
Yes,
too.
yes.
So that,
I just still need the job description or duties that were. At one point in time, somebody said they emailed it to me, or sent me something regarding the job description.
Or I was gonna come up.
Or there
with
was
one, we could
original
talk about it.
Didn't you have like an original kind of job description?
I have something that Julia put together for Jim.
Okay,
But Jim wants to expand the role
Right.
of the manager considerably.
can I
the
get?
manager, yes, the secretary treasurer is what we're really looking for.
Right, but
And that's something you could probably write if you wanted to.
Yeah, you have to write up to what you.
yeah, the treasurer's pretty basic, but the secretary would be statutory.
I want to
Yeah,
see
you
it
guys
there
are
where you have to
together.
do everything for me.
In other words, I wouldn't be a clerical person for the district. That would be the manager's job.
Correct.
The gates, roads,
Right,
all
exactly.
of that. Yeah.
But there's
Sure.
got to be.
But right now, you're partially handling.
Oh, yeah,
You're still
I'm
kind of
handling
you're
all
doing the
of
same
that.
thing.
That's
Doing
what I'm
all the
saying.
same thing, yeah.
She's been amazing in
Right.
Yeah,
what
I'm
she's doing.
continuing it, but until you do this thing.
Yeah.
But when we get to the secretary, that would be the person that comes to the meeting, takes the minutes, does the minutes, does.
And you don't have to talk
Well,
to
we're
me
going
all
to kind
month.
of keep it, you
You
as
don't-
those two.
But I don't do the letters, violation letters, or the emails to the county code enforcement, or write letters. But I would deal with the. I don't even know if I don't even know if I would even deal with the ethics commission and making sure the F6s were filed or any of that. That's where you got to get really granular into what is that going to, who's going to do that. Because
Maybe
there's
we
a lot
should
of things
revisit,
that
maybe we should revisit this idea somewhat.
there's a lot of granular.
Maybe I'd
things.
like to put a motion to rescind
You used to have it all.
I second the motion.
secretary manager.
No, because he's already decided I can't do it because if he wants to expand his role, and I agree with him.
I think
don't
the
have
role is
40
the
hours
manager role.
a month to do that.
That's, so. the
I'm making a
managers-
penny an hour.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not even making a penny an
I
hour.
was going to say, you're making a penny a week.
And I did in a minute you notice that I'm sorry, but you only getting $50 a month, not a meeting.
What I would like to, yes, sir, Mr. Frank.
So, I believe if you separate it out, and that was the intention.
Yeah.
Was to separate out the manager's role.
Well, it'd be good to know, anyways, what the
Yeah.
duties are, regardless of our decisions.
And I think if you do that, then the secretary treasurer's position will be essentially what's left. And it's generally described in the statute as to what those roles are.
Okay, I didn't know that. So it's in the
It's very
statute.
broad what's in the statute.
Yes.
It's very broad.
Right.
I read the statute.
Yes.
Very broad, but
And
it's a guideline.
that's right. And so you can be more narrow in scope to the extent that you want to. But they're very different. The one position is essentially to inspect and to cite, CITE, and to confirm activity and functions. That's the manager's role. The secretary treasurer's role is to keep records, the public records custodian for the district, to keep the record of the meetings and the meeting minutes. And then the treasurer's element relates to the banking, the record keeping of the monthly reporting of the financial records, the assistance then with the audit and the preparation and completion of the audit. All of those efforts go under the treasurer's title. That's how they split out, I'm thinking. But it's the board's decision as to how you want them split out, but that's generally, that what I just described kind of sort of tracks the statutory concepts.
Chris, do we have any job description at all?
Yeah, we have one that Julia put together, so I can send that out to each of you.
Send that to us and I'll work on it.
Okay.
Based on what Mr. Pringle just said.
I mean, I know when I spoke to you, Jennifer, you said, as far as secretary, go on the meeting, take the minutes, do the records, blah, blah, blah. And
Okay, I have another question now that we're,
so do we need motions on that to table this to next month?
I have a, hang on a minute. I got a question for you, and it's just more for the attorney. I've spent a lot of time in my private vehicle, road mileage, fuel, stuff like that. Can I bill that to the district?
Yes.
I'm not billing for time.
Yes. The actual out-of-pocket costs.
That's all I'm asking.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm still waiting on some receipts from you.
Remember the state of Florida standards when you were a fire
Sure.
chief for the reimbursement?
But I haven't been used to us doing that in this setting.
Yes.
It's just that when we
It's
have
similar
expenses that are actually cost to us, that we should be able to be reimbursed. And through this hurricane thing, it's not like just one day I ran here or ran there. Like when I came down to your office, for instance, when we were hiring Mr. Edenfield.
Right. Right.
So I had an overnight stay. I had,
Like,
Horse meat?
like,
What did he do? Can we bill for horse
no,
meat?
he's being facetious.
so, but with all due respect, I just was asking that if I give you a receipt for a tank of
Oh,
fuel
the night of the
and or
hurricane?
mileage on my
Well, so we're
truck,
like-
whichever.
It's speckled.
Mileage.
Mileage.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
Mileage.
And
absolutely.
so Jim, just so you know, when Mike goes to municipal supply to pick up signs and whatnot, he includes mileage on his when he does that.
His vehicle on top of an hourly rate that we pay?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because that's an out-of-pocket expense, just like your out-of-pocket expense.
Okay. I didn't know
I
that.
don't. When I go to the post office, when I go to the bank, when I go to Action Door, I don't put mileage. I don't do the mileage for that.
Okay.
But if I were to go from my house to Action Door, to Municipal Supply and pick up supplies, I did that once, and then I put mileage.
Okay.
So it's whatever the federal. Do they need to approve accepting of the federal regular?
There's a
Regulation.
chapter.
58 cents.
Florida statutes has
Yes,
that written
there's
out.
chapter
58 cents a
112.
nickel mile.
I think it's 112. I think it's part 3. Chapter 112 has this.
That correlates back to the federal
Yes.
one, which is 62.5 cents.
62 and a
If
half
you want
cents.
to,
Oh, now it's up?
What she just said.
It's 62.5 cents, was 58, okay.
if you
Yeah, it went up.
if you want to, so this chapter 112 part 3 standard is the one that's applicable. If you want to apply the federal standard, then you need board action to do that.
So is there a difference?
I think the federal standard is better. I think it may be a little bit higher mileage wise.
I don't know what the state is.
And meals wise.
It used to be 58 cents, Tammy says 62.5.
Well, the federal.
Let's put
earlier in
let's
the
put
year
a
it was
motion on
58,
the
and then it
floor
went to 62.5.
to accept the federal standard as well as the states, whichever is greater.
I second the motion.
Aye.
Jim?
How about, let's say, as a suggestion, how about let's say we'll put those into place and I'll bring you back a resolution that
Okay.
does it
Okay.
officially, and we can make it retroactive to this date because this is your decision-making date. I need to look into that language about whichever is greater. I'm not sure I can do that.
I think you ought to choose one or the other.
Yes, I'll pick
Well,
the
then
one.
figure out which one's greater.
Right,
and
and
use
that's
that.
the one we'll use. That was the thought.
So do you want to?
As long as you wanna work harder
table
for
this
that.
motion until you figure that out?
No, the motion is to have the resolution done using the higher rate
Whichever one it
between
is.
the two, federal or state, and to put it in the resolution and to make it effective today. That's the
But that's
reason
not going
that
to
you
get
need
you
the
your
motion.
money that you spent in the last 2 weeks.
Retroactive.
Retroactive.
Sure.
So do you want to make it, can we make it pay back to October 1?
Remember,
Or-
it's ultimately going to be a
To the
theme.
beginning
It's going to
of
be a
fiscal
theme
year.
of.
Yeah,
I think you can do it retroactive to the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay, remember it's going to be a FEMA thing, and actually he's correct on that because I had pay increases before retro back to the first of the year when it was November. So, when I was in the fire department, still we used the Florida statutes, so you can't go back into a different year. But
So I'll put that together.
okay,
all right, who's our second?
I did.
Oh, you did.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, John did, sorry.
Motion passed?
Aye.
okay. Approve the September 17th, 2022 annual landowners minutes. Approve the approval of the September 17th, 2022 regular monthly meeting.
This table here.
I don't think I did motions to table these either. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can do it.
Did I do motions to table them? Did I ask them for that? I don't remember.
I don't think you did.
I don't remember doing
You
it.
didn't do it.
Hold on.
I think I just said it's tabled.
You need a motion to.
It's already on, well, it's already on the agenda, we'll just leave it alone. Just
Okay.
move on.
Table it?
Yes, ma'am, no action was taken, we'll be on the agenda next month again.
To approve the minutes.
No, sir, she backed me up, Miss Lawson backed me up to the manager
Oh,
and the
Secretary Treasurer.
Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Edenfield's laughing. Secretary Treasurer is.
Okay, we're gonna approve.
Okay, back to where we were at. Okay.
Yes, sir, now you're back to where you were.
Approve the September 17th, 2022 annual landowners meeting minutes and approve the September 17th, 2022 regular monthly meeting.
And we want to add to that and the October 6th emergency.
I thought we already did that. We
No.
did we did
Ratification.
a ratification to approve that.
But you didn't approve the minutes. So,
Then we will include the minutes
Yes,
to
the
the
emergency.
October 6th emergency meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. That's technically.
I need a second.
Second.
motion to approve.
Aye.
Approve the August 2022 bank statements and financial records, September 2022.
we're going to scratch that because we're going to table the September 22 financial and bank records because we don't have them.
Okay, then we put a motion on the floor to postpone them or whatever. Do we need to do that or just let it
They're
go?
on the agenda.
Okay, they're on the agenda.
So if you don't take action now, you gotta take action someday. It'll come up again.
But do you need a motion? Because can't we just say table, no action taken? You did that on 4 things.
Okay, guys, let's move along here.
We're good.
Nobody's buying drinks later.
Okay,
Okay?
October, yes. I need a motion for the October 22nd bank statements, financial reports, and the October 22 bills and the October 22 financial reports you have.
Okay.
Second.
Aye.
Then we need a motion for the September to table to next month.
We haven't done a motion to table anything.
I know. Okay, so I'm gonna say no action. We're just not gonna.
No action, and so it comes up again.
Item 11, supervisor discussion.
Do we have to have any?
No, we don't. I was going to say, don't say a word. Are we past this? We're past it. Okay, adjournment. Motion on the floor.
Second the motion.
Aye.
Wow, I thought you guys would be faster than that on that one. David,
And what
thank you
time
so
is
very
it?
much. Hey,
8:09.
before you leave, come here a minute.
Is that a record?
Stop.
You were kind enough to come.
Stop.